Hey guys, welcome to Game Bed today, bringing out a video, and today for our Battlefield 2042 video, we're going to be covering all the vehicles that I spotted in the 2042 reveal trailer yesterday that came out June 9th, 2021. So I'll go ahead and link in the description down below the video to yesterday where we covered all of the weapons spotted in the reveal trailer. Went through, meticulously got just about, I think, every single weapon in that reveal trailer that we can expect to see, all based on real life weapons, especially a lot of the next generation squad weapons and the fire control systems that are going to be coming for both United States and Russia. We see a lot of the weapons there, machine guns, assault rifles, so everything in the trailer I picked out and we put it in that video yesterday. I'll link that down below for you guys. In today's video, we're going to cover all of the vehicles, the manned vehicles that we can expect to be able to pilot and drive in Battlefield 2042. So let's go ahead and get right on it now. I'm going to go through this list in order of appearance. Yesterday we went by category for the weapons, but today I'm going to go in order of appearance in the trailer. So at the start of the trailer, first one you're going to be seeing here, right at the opening clip there, is going to be Bell V22 Osprey. And this is going to be an interesting one because it appears to be not a typical V22. So the one we have here in-game does not have rotors on it. So it appears to be that it may be part of the FVL, or the Future Vehicle Lift Program, but also since this is 2042, it would be even further than that because it's strictly a propulsion-based aircraft here. There's no rotors whatsoever, you can see in the screenshots compared to the real-life version. So it'll be interesting to see. One thing it really reminds me of with some of the in-game screenshots that are on the Battlefield website is one of the Avengers aircraft there, the Quinjet, is what it really looks like to me. Very similar to that kind of design, but it's clearly some sort of Osprey just without any rotors on it, strictly vertical lift. Now the Osprey itself was introduced in 2007. Its first flight took place in 1989, and it is capable of STOL and VTOL, that being short takeoff land and vertical takeoff land. So it'll be interesting to see what this is actually called in game, and if there are different variants maybe with rotors or not, but according to what we see here, no rotors. So we see that right in the opening clip and sprinkled throughout the trailer itself. Now, next up, if we skip over to the tank scene, so the second shot of vehicles we see really in the whole entire trailer here is on this desert map, and it looks to me like we have the Merkava 4, which is the main battle tank for the Israeli Defense Force. However, obviously, this being 20 years in the future, it would be some sort of future iteration of that, I'm assuming. So the Merkava 4 is actually produced in 2004 through present. But again, it also looks like it could be some sort of a mix with an Abrams. The latest Abrams model is the future proposed model is currently the M1A2C, which is going to be the latest upgraded version of the Abrams. After the cancellation of the Future Combat System, there was a tank that was supposed to replace this, that being the XM1202 combat system. That was canceled, so they had to make an upgrade to the Abrams. And the latest one we have today is the M1A2C. However, the Merkava 4, if we look at that as reference, because that's the design that it looks closest to what we see here in game, the armament for that in real life is going to be the IMI 120mm smoothbore gun. It also has two 7.62mm guns, 150 caliber machine gun, and it has a top speed of 64 kilometers per hour. However, here in game, it looks to me like it's obviously unmanned turrets on the top. It looks like 150 caliber machine gun. You can see where it has a trophy system on it as well for defense. So it looks to be some future iteration of the Israeli Defense Force Merkava V, or it could even be a future iteration of the M1 Abrams, or maybe a combination of the two, maybe something that's used by the Notepad. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's the tank that we see there. One key feature here for the Merkava V is that it has a removable modular armor system, so it can take armor from the Merkava Mark III and use it on, put those panels on all sides, including the top, rear cover, as well as the underside for additional coverage. So it's very similar to a lot of the aspects of what we see with the M1A, these future iterations where they're upgrading them as well. So it'll be interesting to see which tank that really is, and when we can get our hands on it and see better angles, what it really is based off of. Now, the next tank we see in this shot, where these, we're going to call them the Merkava 4s for now, are shooting. They shoot one tank here, and that tank that appears to be shot, we see this tank twice. It appears to be a T-14. This is an Armata Russian tank. We see it again in the last shot of the trailer right before the hurricane or the tornado hits. A lot of soldiers are standing around this. It appears to be a Russian T-14. This is a next-generation main battle tank based on the Armata Universal Combat Platform for the Russian military. It has some key features such as an unmanned turret, which is something that obviously we're going to be seeing, appears we're going to be seeing in this game. They had those back in, I want to say, unmanned turrets in Bad Company. They had it in Battlefield 4, and in Bad Company 2, I believe they had unmanned turrets. So now that we have actual tanks today that do have unmanned turrets, that being the T-14, it would make sense and fit in the game really well, especially since we're looking 20 years into the future. So, as the unmanned turret, it has a 125mm gun compared to the 120mm gun of the Abrams and the Merkava, equipped with 45 rounds inside the tank. It also has a 12.7mm unmanned cord machine gun, which is a 50 caliber heavy machine gun. Think of it as the equivalent of the Browning 50 cal for the United States. And also, in real life, has a PK tank-mounted machine gun on it, which is that 7.62 by 54mm R machine gun on the tank. So we don't have too many good shots of this in the trailer itself, but it appears to be a T-14, although it could be perhaps maybe some sort of T-95 variant as well. We'll have to wait and get a better shot of it, hopefully in the gameplay reveal this Sunday. Next up, when we flash to the snow scene on the ice, we have two vehicles here, one being the Textron Systems Ripsaw manned tank. So this Ripsaw is an interesting weapon in real life, or vehicle I should say in real life. You can see here it's basically supposed to be an all-terrain transport multi-purpose tank type vehicle. It's gone through numerous phases and trials. It initially was supposed to be a manned tank, which we see here in game, and now currently it's in trials as an unmanned vehicle. It's been having some rough times in the trials, it appears, but it seems to be a Ripsaw manned tank compared to the unmanned version which they're testing today. So obviously being 20 years in the future, it would make sense that we would have one or the other, or maybe even both we'll see in game, is the Ripsaw manned tank. However, this one appears to be having be powered by some sort of future propulsion system as well that doesn't appear to be a typical engine itself that we're used to today in 2021. So would definitely make sense for that near future 2042 timeline. Now the other vehicles that we see here, we see some sort of variant of the LCAC, which is a air cushioned landing craft, essentially. It's a hovercraft variant of that, I would say. The air cushioned landing craft, the LCACs, are very big. They're made for transporting tanks and lots of vehicles. They're actually very enormous. What we see here in game is a smaller variation of that, and I couldn't doing some limited research, I couldn't find a small variant like we see here in game. But again, it appears to be some sort of LCAC hovercraft variant that we're seeing here on the ice, the air cushion landing craft. So definitely not made for transporting tanks or anything like that here in game. It looks like just another vehicle to navigate and get around in. So I'll have to wait and see what that looks like when we can get better shots of it outside of the trailer. Next up, moving on to some of the helicopters, we have them appearing in good order here. We have the Mi-26 Russian transport. So we see this in a few shots, that being the one where the rocket is launching on that map for, I believe it's supposed to take place in France. So when this rocket is launching, we see what looks like an Mi-26 Russian transport. Could even be the future iteration, which is proposed to be the Mi-27. Now, the Mi-26 is a Soviet-era transport helicopter that's kind of withstood the test of time. It was first debuted in 1983, so we see two shots of this, that being in that scene where the rocket is taking off, as well as in the scene where we get the overview of that Seoul, Korea-inspired map. There seems to be what looks like an Mi-26 profile on top of one of the buildings. So again, really hard to make out what this is. We just see essentially the profile of it, and the profile looks like an Mi-26, or perhaps what the future Mi-27 would be. But we don't have very far away shots, so we can't really see any detail. But that's what it appears to be, from what I can tell. Next up, moving through the sand-covered map, the downtown city that appears to be inspired by Dawnbreaker. It really has flashbacks reminds me of some of the cities in Shanghai from Pacific Rim. Pretty interesting looking map. I'm really excited to get into there. But we see the debut of the Ka-52K Katran. So the Russian chopper, this is first debuted the variants in June 1997. Again, this appears to be the Ka-52K. So this is a two-seater helicopter, has dual vertical rotors you'll see stacked on top of each other. It has one Shipanov 2A42 autocannon. This is a 30mm cannon and 12 anti-tank missiles, as well as can be outfitted with anti-tank guided missiles, which I'm pretty sure it used to have in previous Battlefield games. It can also carry several rocket pods, which we see this with rocket pods here in the trailer as these two Ka-52s are flying around chasing this little bird around the building. So it does appear to have rocket pods in the game. One thing, this helicopter first appeared, and I believe the only time it appeared, was in Battlefield Bad Company 1. You had this as a Russian helicopter, and that's exactly how it operated there. The pilot itself, you had the 30mm cannon, and the gunner had the 7 anti-tank guided missiles that you would have to shoot towards the tanks and guide into the targets for the most part, I believe is how it worked. Or you would just shoot them towards the tank. So it was a very difficult helicopter to use, especially when you had to go toe-to-toe with the Apache. But if you could hit your shots with that 30mm cannon on the Ka-52, it was extremely effective. So that's the Ka-52. We do see a couple different shots of it in the trailer, but that's the main one there in that downtown Tokyo looking city. Next up, we have the confirmation finally. Here we have the Little Bird. So a future iteration, or the latest version of the Little Bird, that being the AH-MH6M. So basically all the remaining Little Birds, I believe as of 2015, were being now converted into the MH6Ms. So these are basically just a modernized, upgraded version of the current Little Birds. The ones we see in game here in the trailer have miniguns and rocket pods on them, which we haven't had rocket pods on the Little Birds before. You had the ability to have air-to-ground missiles to lock on to vehicles, but we never really had any rocket pods to launch Hydras or anything like that, from what I remember in previous Battlefield games, unless it was maybe way back in Battlefield 2 on PC. But yeah, the miniguns and rocket pods. However, the profile of this appears to be like it has a little bit of stealth paneling on it, as well as some of the profiles you see on the side shots and things like that. So it stands to reason, since the MH6M was beginning to be rolled out and upgraded in 2015, that this being 20 plus years after that would probably have a stealth Little Bird, similar to what we have with stealth Blackhawks nowadays. It does appear to have that stealth panel profile on some of the shots that I can see. Next up, for the two jets that we see here in the trailer, we have and obviously we first see them in the Renaissance scene, and we also see them in the very end of the trailer, that last battle scene where we have basically all-out chaos going on right before the hurricane or the tornado hits. We have the Lockheed Martin F-35D. So the F-35D is a proposed variant of the F-35. It has not been put into production yet, from my knowledge. Now, if we look at the F-35 in general, the F-35B was put into service in 2015, and it has 4 30mm cannons, as well as other armaments for air-to-surface missiles and air-to-air missiles. So the F-35D is a proposed variant, one of 2 proposed variants, and obviously, since this is going to take place in 2042, I'm just guessing and saying that this would be the F-35D. Now, the counterpart that we're seeing here chase the F-35 in both scenes here in the trailer. We have both the Renaissance scene and that end battle scene. The Russian Sukhoi Su-57 is a stealth multi-role fighter. So this appears to be chasing the F-35 in just about every scene we see of it, except for some of the screenshots here that we found on the Battlefield website. So we see the Su-57. This was introduced just very recently here in December 2020. It's the 4th stealth fighter introduced alongside, in the world, alongside and after the F-22, the F-35, and the Chinese J-20. So the Su-57, really sleek and beautiful aircraft. Again, it has 30mm cannons and air-to-surface, air-to-air combat capabilities as well. It is a stealth multi-role fighter, so it stands to reason, I'm guessing, we'll have stealth, same as Battlefield 4, stealth fighters, and the attack jets, which we saw in the form of the A-10s and the Frogfoot. So we'll probably see some future iterations of those as well. Next up, in that last battle scene, finally we have the confirmation, and again, I haven't seen this helicopter since Battlefield Bad Company 2, so it's been a long time. Really glad that I finally get to fly this thing again. That being the Longbow Apache AH-64F. So the AH-64F is a conceptualized version, again, same with what we covered with the F-35D. This is a future proposed version to replace which will eventually be replaced in 2040 by the future vertical lift attack program. So as we discussed earlier with the V22 Ospreys, the Future Vertical Lift program is a program that is basically going to have a bunch of different aircraft. They still have rotors on them, but it'll be composed of essentially the same parts, and there will be an attack version, transport, etc. So it's proposed that this Future Vertical Lift program will have an attack version of something that will replace the Apache in 2040. However, the AH-64F is the conceptualized version which will be put into place or upgraded, which should last until it's finally started to be phased out in 2040. But the way these things work, we're going to see the Apache long after that, and obviously here in game, it appears that it's going to be the F variant or something else past that in 2042. So in real life, this thing is armed with 8 Hellfire missiles, 1,200 30mm cannon rounds, 38 Hydras, and it has a max speed of 150 knots. So really good to see that back again. Haven't seen the Apache since Bad Company 2. So thank God we get to fly that thing again. We've really only seen the Vipers and the Cobras in Battlefield 3 and 4. So it'd be good to have an Apache back in the Battlefield series. Next up, we have a few shots here at the very end of the trailer as the Hurricane's hitting of some sort of future Jeep. I'm assuming, I just did some quick research, it appears to be a Jeep, the GM ISV, or the Infantry Squad vehicle. So this is a future iteration of that. I'm assuming it can be, the shots we see in game, it has a mounted 50 caliber machine gun, and it looks pretty close to what the ISV would look like in the versions that we see here today. And then the final vehicle that we have in game, trying to outrun the storm itself, the tornado, is going to be a TukTuk. This is just obviously a 3-wheel transportation taxi type car, which has been around forever. Different variations of that. So we have the TukTuk getting sucked up into the storm, and then in the storm itself, you see the Apache, you see a Little Bird, and I think you see definitely some jets in there. But it's cool, that last battle scene leading up to the storm itself, we see all the vehicles almost, minus the tanks. We see all the air vehicles. We see the F-35 being chased by the Su-57. We see a Little Bird. We see 2 Longbow Apaches on the map, and I believe a Ka-52 way out there in the distance as well. So 2 Longbow Apaches should be interesting, and I'm excited to see how this works. If that can actually be a thing, the maps are going to be that big. You get 2 Apaches on a team. How these are going to be called in. So we have some information we'll cover on that in some future videos. But those are all the vehicles I spotted in the Battlefield reveal trailer for Battlefield 2042. Let me know if I missed anything or if you think I got something wrong. Again, a lot of these are future versions. The only thing I'm really unsure about is the tanks that we discussed, the Merkava V, or the Merkava 4, and the Abrams M1A2C. Seems to be something along those lines. Could be a mix of them, or maybe just a future version of the Abrams, but the profile itself looks closer to the Merkava 4. So let me know down below what you guys think. Again, this is Buffering Gaming with all vehicles spotted in the Battlefield 2042 reveal trailer. I'll be covering streaming for the reveal of the gameplay here on Sunday, June 13th. So if you're enjoying the content, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for all the upcoming Battlefield news and information. And again, we'll do the live stream here Sunday on YouTube. So, till next time, this is Buffering Gaming. All the vehicles in Battlefield reveal trailer. Buffering Gaming. Out.